We are on Kuf Mem Aleph, page Kuf Mem Aleph. Again, it's always Nun Vov on the conclusion of the Maimer. The second half of that, the conclusive paragraph. And we are not talking about specifically the Kabbalah Machar Shomayim unique to Rosh Hashanah. Prior to that, we already discussed the Inyan from Kabbalah Machar Shomayim in general. Throughout the year, throughout all the time, there is a Inyan from Kabbalah Machar Shomayim. And we discussed how that it translates and so forth. Now we are in Rosh Hashanah. We said that Kabbalah Machar Shomayim on a general scale is when it's not a seichel motivated acceptance. It is when his entire essence is being dedicated to that which is higher than himself, to Lakus. Then comes Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah is unique in that, within that inyan itself, of Kabbalah Machar Shomayim. Okay, 4 lines from the top. Al Kuf Memalav, the line begins with the word Lakus. At the end of that line, Ki B'Rosh Hashanah, because on Rosh Hashanah, I'll connect the key because I'll connect to what it's connected to in a moment. Because on Rosh Hashanah, whose man is the moment, is the time, Hamshochas Harotzin Imlucha, of drawing down the Rotzin, the divine will, Limlucha, for kingship, for royal relationship to the world. V'harotzin, and along with that, the will, librias v'yizhavus ha'ilamis, for the creation and the ultimate coming to being and having a presence of world. Shezehu bechinas, where this is the bechina, this is the element, the aspect of Keser Malchus, the crown of kingship, kingdom. Shemamshichim b'Rosh Hashanah, that we draw down on Rosh Hashanah. Shehu inyan, which is inyan hamshochas atzmus enisay, the drawing out and revealing the bechina, the aspect of atzmus enisay, the essence of enisay. Let me try and discuss it a little bit. This is not for one single shear, but since we are into it, and the Rebbe is bringing us into this, and we have some expressions here that we can focus in. Number 1. The principle of kingship in a king. Let's reflect on this. If we reflect in the real phenomenon of a king, not as king, putting himself out in the world, but the divine principle of kingship. Who is by right a king? What is the whole phenomenon of a king in this huge world, with all kinds of human beings around? They're very intelligent and very good and kind. What is the function? What is the principle of a king? The very blunt and the so to speak, the in-your-face question is, what makes a king a king? Is it the people that make the king into a king, or is a king make the people into a people? A king who is created, being a king, by virtue of the fact that he rules over people, is not the king that we're dealing with over here in Hasidus. This is not a king by definition of a king. The primary recognition is let us say in our country, in our blessed country, we have something akin to a king. We have the government, and in the government we have the U.S. government approximate the king, because we have a president. It's not a parliamentary system. It's a presidential system. The president is on top of the government. Now, the president is elected by all the people, and he's elected to perform a task that has been decided by the people. A king has a completely different mandate. He defines his duty, not the people define his duty. Let's take the principle of a king as it is reflected within one single human being himself. A human being has all kinds of different faculties. I'm not going to enumerate the feet and heads and hands and so forth. And then we have a head and we have a heart.
To remain on this call, press 1.
Everyone recognizes that the real human being, the primary identification of the human being is his head and his heart. Not his feet. Those who celebrate one's feet, that he's able to run very fast and jump very high and so forth, this is a misconstruing value of a human being. Jumping and running fast is described in the Torah as being the function of the goat. or strength is a lion, and so forth. But what is a human being? The human being is the primary influence of a human being is his intellect and his heart. What are these two? I started with, I might as well. What are these two aspects in the human being? There are two very distinct aspects. The head is what defines the human being. The heart is what connects the human being to the rest of the world. The Rambam says that a melech, a king, is the heart of the people. Why the heart, not the head? Because the whole thing of a melech is to give guidance to the people, to relate to the people. If he stands aloof, he's not a king. He's great, but he's not a king. A king, this is what happens. When a king is elected, accepts to be king, he accepts to be part of these people. And he has a complete concern about every individual in his kingdom. This is the heart. He has a full concern about the welfare of every individual person in his kingdom.
This fly is looking for the right customer.
All right.
The flies flying around.
They're catching a fly over here.
Uh-huh. That's far from.
Okay, to conclude this, the king I want to step back a little bit and explain where this is coming from, what this is about. If a human being is as we perceive it in our world, the sum total of his experience, if he's a smart guy and he went to school and he really absorbed everything that he learned, he becomes the president of the company. In other words, if the sum total of a human being is the sum total of his experience, then he is part of the people. The people had a similar experience, except he maybe excels because he is smarter. This does not place him in the position of a king. Place him in a position of responsibility. The reason that there is such a thing as a king in concept is that the world is not developed from the worldly basis. The world is a divine creation. It has a divine spirit and power that the world could never develop on its own. To put it bluntly and very simply, we all know these terminology. A king is born. At birth, he's a king.
Yeah.
At birth. Because he's given by the Meibach in the Shama a nefesh of a king's caliber. This is not something that's developed by going to school, learning the ins and outs of government. Having said that, we have the basic means to recognize that king, the whole phenomenon of king, is not a worldly concept. The world cannot develop a king. The way the Torah speaks about a king, like look in Tanakh, Hashem, which is Hashem's throne. And the king sits on the throne that Hashem put him on. Thus, when we come on Rosh Hashanah and we say this is the time when the yin of Malchus is revealed from above, this Malchus is not created by the world and by the need of government. This Malchus is that which is given to the world. It's a divine gift to the world, to give the world a real significance, a real presence, a divine level of presence. Similar to what we said, that a king is a divine creation. A king brings to his nation an element that the nation does not possess, but for his presence.
You'd think that would be the head, not the heart.
Very good. Very good. And this is what I said before. The king is called the Lev Ha'am. It is the head. The king unto himself is the head. But in terms of his being a king, in terms of his relating to the people, that's the heart. He brings the head down to the heart level in order to bring his impact onto the people. The king is not a figurehead. He is the inspiration, is the heart of the people. That's why he's called the heart of the people. It is true that he himself gains, so to speak, represents the head, what his head is. That's himself. But in terms of accepting being a king, that is the heart element. In the heart, if the king is head, then he doesn't know that there is a people. He's involved in his own thinking, in his own greatness.
He's Humpty Dumpty.
What's a Humpty Dumpty?
Humpty Dumpty.
What is that?
Humpty Dumpty sat on the wall. Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. All the king's soldiers and all the king's men couldn't put Humpty together again.
How is that? What is that?
Because he looks like a big head.
Oh, big head. Okay. I couldn't really correlate that. I know the story of Humpty Dumpty, but I couldn't really correlate what you're referring to. Anyway, here's the point. You brought out the principle. Now we have to reflect on it and relate to it. The principle is that the king brings to the people something that they do not even know to want. It's beyond their comprehension. This is why, how do they relate to the king? And how does the king consent to be their king? It is by their dedication. If they are going to come to him and say, explain to us what you're about, don't forget it.
In their dedication, there must be a sense of them yearning for.
Should we?
There must be a sense of them wanting or yearning for something else.
No. Yearning, they don't even know what to yearn for.
So what's the basis of their dedication?
Great. The answer is, when they see the king, in his presence, they recognize something which is beyond their understanding. It is his presence that lifts them to a place of recognizing, oh, there's something much greater than anything that I projected. It could not be projected ahead of time.
Huh.
This is what the Rebbe says over here. Let's go back inside. Enough talking. Again, at the end of the fourth line from the top. Rosh Hashanah is the time to be mamshech the rotzen nimluch, the divine will for melucha. How do you mamshech the divine will for melucha? By submitting and say, we are here for your nation and your kingdom.
That submission is based on his presence.
In his presence, right? Harotzen nimluch. V'harotzen librius v'shavas ha'olamas. And altogether, the rotzen, the divine will to create and have the world exist. Shazel b'chinas keser malchus. This is the beginning. That's what of keser malchus, the crown of malchus. Shemamshich in Rosh Hashanah, which we are mamshich, which we draw from godliness on Rosh Hashanah. Shehu inyan, here is the clincher. Here these words we must think about. Shehu inyan, which is ultimately the principle of hamshochas atzmos ein sof. To be mamshech the etzem of ein sof. What means atzmos ein sof? The essence of ein sof, the ein sof as it is true unto itself, not as it expresses itself in the world, and understood in the world. Atzem ein sof, the reality of the etzem itself. We spoke a lot about the word etzem, and there's no end to that. And the reason we can speak about it is because the Rebbe should bless us with this, with the divine intelligence, and we have a sense what this is about. Not understanding, but we can be a sense that there is that supreme greatness, the essence, the reality itself. The mashal for essence in our world is like the sun. It's the essence of brightness. What makes it bright, we don't know. What maintains its presence, we don't know. And this essence of the sun, as we said many times, rules the entire existence of the world. Encompasses everything that there is. Memshal's Vayin. And this is in from the mamshech the atzmos ein sof. Shezehu. Here's the point. Shezehu, which is accomplished, hamshochas atzmos ein sof, is dafko, that can be accomplished exclusively as a result and through the process of the bitul hanal that we explained before. By the way, hanal means hanisker liyel. That was mentioned earlier.
Means mentioned earlier,
Yeah.
as mentioned earlier.
Yeah. The beetle I mentioned earlier. What was the beetle that mentioned earlier? A beetle of the Eved, where he has no presence of his own. There is only the master. He has no reason. He doesn't understand the order. He only knows, as the expression in the Maimer, I didn't spend enough time on those two words. He only knows that he is an Eved. He doesn't know that this is a master. He doesn't know the significance of the master. He knows that he is an Eved. And the master defines who he is. This is Bitlana. Subsequently, yesterday I thought of an interesting halacha, of revealing halacha. Like you asked, but he doesn't know his master. How is a Nebuch without a master? The halacha is, Ma shekono eved kono rabbe. Whatever the Eved acquires, his master acquires instantaneously at the very same instant. He acquires it, and the master acquires it. Not through him, but primarily. The reason he can acquire anything is because he has a master. This phenomenon, does not require that the Eved should be in close proximity to the master. He can be on a different continent. Wherever he is, because the Eved represents the master wherever he goes. That's what an Eved is. Again, I have to refresh this thought. In the world, this seems to be an unfair type of a possession. If things in the world were worldly developed, yes, indeed, it would be totally unfair. But that is not the case. The case is that this is something which comes from a super presence, from the divine presence. And he allows the essence of this creator to be recognized in the world. This is what happens on Rosh Hashanah.
I lost track. How does it relate to the slave acquiring, the master acquires whatever the slave acquires?
The means by which, or the state of being that relates the slave to the master, or the world to the king, is total submission. There is not a means of the world to understand what a king is and appreciate it. And as we've known historically, that when the world began to self-identify, they rejected the king. Who was a king?
Is submission and dedication used the same way here? Dedication, submission.
Yeah, it's the same concept.
Yeah.
And the reason that there is that whole concept of submission and dedication is due to the fact that in this world and in the heart of men and in the intelligence of human beings, Hashem has given a sense of something greater than world.
The sense of being in His presence, basically.
Being in His presence, being a created entity.
That doesn't seem to be enough. Being a created entity, you may well focus on being an entity.
No, 1 second. What does a created entity mean? Created entity means that there is a creator What is the meaning of a creator? That your presence has been conceptualized before he came into being. You're not an afterthought. Your presence has been conceptualized before. This is the reality of your presence. This is the reality to which you want to aspire to. What was the initial concept of me being here? Within the mind, quote unquote, of the Creator. That was what the greatness of. This is when you recognize a greatness in the world. There's a divine definition. Rotzen limlucha. And he wants there should be brias havas elements. He wants there should be a world. This wanting to be a world is of the highest caliber. This is preconceived by the Creator, and that is the full definition of world.
Right. Seems a necessary ingredient is a sense of his presence. It's not enough to sense his will or see the blueprint or know what he intended. There seems to be the additional need for sensing the king's presence.
Okay. So let me explain what it is about. Since that ultimately there's a creation, and the creation becomes an entity unto itself, a tangible entity. Once the creation becomes self-oriented within its own parameters, it becomes just creation, just world. But world is not a reality. How does world become real? When world recognizes, hey, there is a creator. That what do I stand for? I said I stand for the will of the Creator rather than what I am. Then it becomes a real presence.
What becomes a real presence?
The world.
But right, but it seems like it's more than that is necessary that the king be a real presence, not the world.
No, the king. Yeah, of course.
Right.
That is that. We're not even beginning to understand what that is.
We don't, but we
No,
must.
of course.
But we must have a sense of that, or else
No,
we would
no,
not
no.
direct ourselves to declare him king.
No, we don't have a sense of that. We have the sense of beaten bottle. We say something infinitely greater than what we can conceive. That's it. AYIN safe. Not what it is. We cannot really, so to speak, wrap our brain around it. This is why it's too beaten. It's a different kind of reality.
And that's sufficient. That is the dedication.
That is the dedication. Because why is dedication? Because then you recognize the presence of the king all the time. Shvish Hashem l'neg the summit.
It's like a chokhmah. It's like a chokhmah. The chokhmah absorbs, not wraps around the reality. It draws. It absorbs the chokhmah. Anything.
We should certainly capture the certain point we discussed here. This is realized. This is realized through beetle. The beetle that we're talking about is an absolute beetle. Like he said, he's an Eved. He can be 1,000 miles away. Masha kono Eved kono Rabbe. What I own, my master owns automatically. Not because it's transferred to him, he automatically owns it. Because my whole mitzvah is the master. And this beetle is what enables, this beetle is what elicits the will milmaila to create the world. And this beetle is what connects the world to the neighbors. This is the Kabbalah Seil Malchus Shamayim. Kabbalah Seil Malchus Shamayim means accepting the yoke, not understanding and recognizing and submitting to this greatest, to this wisdom, but the yoke.
Nasa v'nishma.
Nasa v'nishma. As much as we will talk about it in circles, attempting to grasp it in our mind, there's no way. It is not at the level of our mind. This is why it's under